Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Jimmy. I'm 31, a software developer, and for most of my life, I thought keeping calm meant keeping control. I wasn't the loudest guy in the room, and I never needed to be. I believed patience solved more problems than shouting ever could. That belief is probably why I stayed with Sharon for as long as I did. Sharon was 2 years younger, full of fire and impossible to ignore. She worked in public relations and had a way of making every moment feel staged for an audience. When we first met at a charity softball game, she laughed louder than anyone. At the start, her energy felt like something I lacked. She was exciting, magnetic, the type of person who could convince strangers she belonged anywhere. But after a while, what once felt charming started to wear me down. Sharon had a habit of making small digs in front of people. One night at dinner with my colleagues, she smiled sweetly and said, "Jimmy looks sharp tonight, but you should see him in sweatpants. Trust me, the magic disappears fast." Everyone laughed, but I sat there wondering why she needed to embarrass me just to get attention. It wasn't just jokes. She made decisions without asking, like booking a weekend trip on a date she knew I had deadlines, or ordering for both of us at a restaurant without even glancing my way. If I spoke up, she'd tilt her head and say, "Relax. It's not a big deal. Don't overthink everything." And I'd drop it, because keeping the peace always seemed easier than starting a fight. Still, I told myself quirks didn't outweigh chemistry. Plenty of couples had differences. But as we moved from dating into engagement, those quirks turned into rules. What I wanted barely registered unless it matched what she had already decided. Looking back, the warning signs weren't subtle. I just didn't want to admit that the woman I planned to marry was more interested in control than compromise. The moment we got engaged, Sharon threw herself into planning like it was her career. She wanted a rooftop wedding at the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown, the kind of place where even the cheapest cocktail costs more than a week of groceries. She started building a guest list that looked more like a political fundraiser than a celebration. I suggested something smaller, a lakeside ceremony, maybe 100 people. But every time I brought it up, Sharon's face hardened like I'd insulted her. "Jimmy, you don't get it," she snapped one night as we sat with spreadsheets open. "This is the most important day of our lives. People will remember it forever. You really want them to think you couldn't even afford a proper wedding?" "It's not about what people think," I answered, keeping my tone steady. "It's about starting our marriage without drowning in debt. That matters more than impressing distant cousins." She rolled her eyes. "You sound like an accountant, not a fiancé. Do you want a marriage or a budget report?" The fights weren't confined to our apartment. At a meeting with the event planner, Denise Keller, Sharon dominated every decision. Denise turned to me about the menu, but Sharon cut in before I could speak. "Jimmy will eat anything. Just make sure the presentation is elegant. He doesn't care about details." I sat back, jaw tight, letting it slide. I wasn't going to start a scene. But that evening, when I found out Sharon had already signed contracts and put down deposits without consulting me, something inside me shifted. "You used our joint account without asking," I said, holding the receipts. She shrugged. "I had to. You'd still be debating napkins while the dates filled up. Someone has to make decisions." That was the moment I realized planning this wedding wasn't about celebrating us. It was about her staging the perfect show, no matter the cost. The breaking point came 2 weeks later during a cake tasting. Sharon insisted we bring both mothers, even though I said I wanted to keep it simple. She claimed it would be cute to make it a family moment. I didn't argue. The tasting started fine, until Sharon decided to lecture me in front of everyone. "Jimmy, can you try to look more excited? You're acting like you're at a tax audit," she said. I looked up slowly. "I'm here, aren't I?" She gave a fake laugh. "Physically, yes. Emotionally, not sure." I glanced at my mom, who shifted uncomfortably. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Sharon, I've told you. I don't care about cake flavors. I care about starting our life together without being buried in debt." Her eyes narrowed. "So you still think this wedding is a waste of money?" "I think it's turning into a show instead of a marriage," I said evenly. She stood up. "You're unbelievable. Do you even love me? Or are you just scared of spending a dime?" I stayed seated. "Don't twist this. It's about respect. You keep making decisions alone, and I'm supposed to nod along like a prop." She stepped closer, face flushed. "You're embarrassing me in front of our mothers." "You brought them here," I replied. That's when she slapped me. Hard. The sound echoed in the tiny room. Both mothers gasped. Sharon's eyes went wide, then instantly filled with tears. "He grabbed my wrist," she said quickly, turning to her mom. I panicked. I stood slowly. "Don't lie." My mother's voice was sharp. "Sharon, I saw what happened." Sharon kept crying, clutching her own wrist like I'd hurt her. I looked at her for a long moment, then said, "We're done here." I walked outside and called a rideshare. That night, I told Sharon to leave my townhouse. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just said, "You crossed a line. Pack your things." She cried. She begged. I didn't flinch. The wedding was over. The day after the tasting, my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from relatives, texts from friends, even a voicemail from one of Sharon's cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Sharon had wasted no time telling her version of the story. In her version, I was the cold fiancé who humiliated her in public. She hinted I'd grabbed her during the fight and made it sound like the slap had been a mistake born of fear. She painted herself as the one who'd been pushed too far. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to fight her in group chats or defend myself to people who didn't deserve the explanation. That afternoon, Darlene called. Her tone was thick with panic. "Jimmy, she's distraught. She didn't mean it. You embarrassed her and she reacted. Please don't ruin everything over one bad moment." "Darlene, she hit me and lied about it in front of you. There's no wedding anymore. That's final." Silence. Then a sigh. "You'll regret this." Later that evening, my mother came over. She put down 2 grocery bags and sat at my table. "You did the right thing," she said simply. "A woman who strikes you once will do it again. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I nodded, grateful for her clarity. But the storm outside kept growing. Mutual friends split down the middle. Sharon's college friend Andrea started posting cryptic updates online. "Funny how some men can't handle strong women." The likes piled up. Meanwhile, Sharon filled my inbox with alternating waves of messages. One minute, "I'm sorry, I'll fix this. Please forgive me." The next, "You're throwing away years over nothing. Everyone thinks you're cruel." I didn't reply. Instead, I called every vendor one by one, the venue, the florist, the photographer. Each time I confirmed cancellations, I felt lighter. By the end of the week, Sharon was out of my townhouse, though not out of my life. She had too much invested in her image to let me walk away quietly. And I was starting to suspect the slap wasn't just about stress. Something else was fueling her spiral. A week after the slap, I started noticing odd details that didn't add up. Sharon had left behind a folder of receipts when she moved her things out. Most were for wedding expenses, but tucked in between was a hotel bill dated 3 months earlier, midweek, for a room near her office. I let it sit. The following weekend, a co-worker of Sharon's, Lily Chen, reached out. She sounded uneasy. "Jimmy, I don't know how to say this, but you deserve the truth," she said over the phone. "People in the office have been whispering about Sharon and Adrian. They've been going to lunches that run 3 hours. He's married, but it's not professional." My stomach dropped, though I kept my voice steady. "Do you have proof?" Lily hesitated, then said she'd send me something. That night, my email pinged with 2 attachments. A grainy photo of Sharon and Adrian walking out of a hotel lobby, his hand low on her back. The pieces clicked together. The over-the-top wedding plans, the hostility whenever I mentioned money, the slap at the tasting. It all made sense. Sharon hadn't been fighting for a dream wedding. She'd been fighting to control the narrative. If she could paint me as the unstable one, her own cheating would fade into the background. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the photo on my screen. I didn't feel rage. What I felt was clarity. Sharon wasn't just manipulative, she was calculating. She wanted me to snap so she could play the victim. But I'd stayed calm. And now, with evidence in hand, it was time to make a move she wouldn't see coming. I invited Sharon over the following Tuesday evening. I didn't tell her why, just said, "We need to talk. 7 o'clock. My place." She showed up dressed like she was going to dinner. The first thing she said when I opened the door was, "I knew you'd come to your senses." I didn't answer. I'd already cleared the living room. No clutter, no distractions, just the coffee table, and on it, a single sheet of paper, the photo of her and Adrian outside the hotel. She noticed the picture immediately. Her smile faltered. "What's this?" she asked. You tell me, I said, leaning against the wall. She picked it up, stared at it, and forced a laugh. Jimmy? Really? That's Adrian. He's a friend. Someone probably caught a bad angle. His hand's on your back. You're leaving a hotel. That's not a bad angle. Her eyes flicked up, calculating. Then came the excuses. I was overwhelmed. The wedding planning. Everything. Adrian was just someone I could vent to. I stayed silent. She tried again, voice softer. It wasn't serious. I didn't mean for it to go anywhere. I still love you. I stepped closer. Not serious? You lied. You cheated. You slapped me in front of our mothers and then played the victim. Tell me how any of that says love. Her lips trembled. I made mistakes, but you pushed me there. You were so distant, always counting pennies. I shook my head. No, those were choices you made. You wanted me to lose my temper so you could blame me, but I didn't. And that's why you're standing here now, cornered. Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for my hand. Please, Jimmy, we can fix this. I'll do anything. Just don't walk away. I pulled my hand back. The wedding's canceled. The engagement's over. There's nothing left to fix. She sank onto the couch, sobbing. But I didn't waver. For the first time in years, I was fully in control. News travels fast, especially when people love drama. Within a week, Adrian had distanced himself completely. Word around Sharon's office was that HR got involved after someone forwarded that picture. She was pulled off a major client campaign, the one she'd been bragging about for months. Mutual friends who had defended her suddenly went quiet. The texts didn't stop, though. At midnight, I'd get paragraphs of apologies, mixed with accusations. You're heartless. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. Don't let one mistake erase everything. I never replied. I didn't need to. For the first time in months, my townhouse felt peaceful. No more argument, no constant buzzing, just silence. And I realized how much I'd missed it. But what struck me most was how quickly her victim story fell apart. Without me reacting, shouting, or lashing out, she had nothing to stand on. The calm I'd held on to, the very thing she mocked, was the same thing that left her scrambling. By the end of that week, Sharon's carefully built image had crumbled. For me, it wasn't about revenge. It was about closure, and I had it. 2 weeks later, there was a knock on my door close to midnight. When I opened it, Sharon stood there, makeup smeared, hair a mess, like she'd been crying for hours. Jimmy, please, just give me 10 minutes, she begged, gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing holding her up. I didn't move. Sharon, there's nothing left to say. Her voice cracked. I'm in therapy now. I've been journaling, trying to fix myself. I know I messed up, but I love you. I never stopped loving you. I shook my head slowly. You loved control, not me. You cheated, you lied, and when you hit me, you tried to make it look like I was the aggressor. That's not love, Sharon. That's survival tactics. She stepped closer, tears spilling. I'm begging you. I'll change. Just don't throw away 4 years over one mistake. It wasn't one mistake, I said firmly. It was a series of choices, and every choice pushed me further away. She looked down, her hands trembling. So, that's it? Yes, I said. The wedding's canceled, the engagement's over, and my life is moving on without you. That's the cleanest ending you're going to get. Her shoulders slumped. For the first time, she didn't argue, didn't make excuses. I closed the door and locked it. Then I sat in the quiet, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. I thought back to the beginning, when Sharon's energy felt like something I needed to balance out my calm. I realized now that my calm had been my strength all along. It kept me from exploding when she slapped me. It kept me grounded when she played the victim. And in the end, it gave me the last word without shouting a single one. Sometimes the strongest move isn't striking back. It's walking away and letting the truth speak for itself. Thank you for watching.